year so far. Thank you, George, for starting the recording. Yes, we've had our 55th murder so far in Columbus, Georgia. I'm speaking at the school board meeting tonight, and so things are really kind of crazy for me. So I'll stop there. But this is the stuff that makes up mass incarceration. All of these people being arrested because of the murders. It's going to be a lot of young people going to prison in the next few months. Over. Now, I will call on people as they join the call. So Philip Cole, you're next, 2 minutes, and then Wendy, and then Diane Blay, and then Robin Lloyd in that order. So 2 minutes each. Philip Cole, check in.
Good morning. I am happy to be here. This is a difficult subject, and I'm very interested in seeing how objectives and goals are set up so we can all work together and hopefully make some progress in this. I think this is America's #1 problem, and it is America's problem, not confined to any particular group. We all have a price to pay. Oakland just recorded their 102nd murder this past weekend. And if you go 15 miles south of Oakland to suburban city, Union City, they recorded their first murder of the year. So this massacre, this genocide, is an unnecessary part of American culture currently, and it needs to stop. And thank you. And I'm calling in from the road. I'll be traveling through Oakland and from Oakland to Napa. Thanks so much.
Okay, my name is Wendy Kennan. I am I live in southern Wisconsin. I am not currently affiliated with a branch. I guess I'm an at-large member, and I am stepping in and with an interest in ending mass incarceration. It is for me, it has simply been an area of study for the last year, and this is my first step into trying to do something about it. So I will be happy to do whatever anyone needs doing. I'm just here to help get the work done and end this long nightmare. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Diane Blay. I guess I'm next. And Wendy, I'm impressed you've been working on it for a year. That's great. And I don't know, since I'm babysitting, how much longer I can talk, or if any, but I did want to say I like end mass incarceration instead of just mass incarceration. I think that's important. That's what we're doing. We're trying to do. So anyway, I'm Diane Blay I'm in the Jane Addams branch. I'm the convener, and I'll be listening, even though I won't be speaking probably because I have to take care of my granddaughter. Okay. Thanks.
Robin Lloyd, you're next.
Okay. Yeah. My mind, I have to use a few minutes of my part of my 2 minutes to talk about the World Conference Against Racism, Xenophobia, and additional discriminations that took place in Durban in 2020.
Excuse me, Robin. Excuse me, Robin. This is a check-in. So you're supposed to give your name, your branch, and you're supposed to say what your expectations are for the meeting. You will have time to tell the other stuff later in the meeting, but people need to know who you are now.
Oh, well, everyone knows, we all know I'm Robin Lloyd, the Burlington branch of WILF, and on the Disarm Committee. That's it.
And what are your expectations for the meeting today?
I'm okay with the title.
She does not.
What do you mean, end mass incarceration as the title of the committee?
Yes.
Okay, I believe Margot joined us. So Margot, this is a 2-minute check-in. You say your
Yes.
name, your branch, your expectations for the meeting, and any roles you have in WILF US.
Thank you. I'll try to keep this brief.
2 minutes.
My name is Margot Schulter, and I'm a member of the Sacramento branch of WILF USA. And this is in Nisenan territory traditionally. And I'm not sure my expectations. I'm concerned that I've been signed up somehow on 4 subcommittees of HR, and I'd like to cut that. I think I'm spreading myself too smooth. I may be making the committees too large. And I know that large committees may have less time to hear each member, and I'm very concerned about the justice of that for other people. And the question I'm having, which I should just mention now quickly, is to whether the death penalty is included in this committee, because I think the death penalty is a very important issue under ARES 62149 of the United Nations. That was resolution adopted on December 17th, 2007. And I don't see that. I don't know. Does it belong under this committee, or could it possibly be under UN for Women? I'm just raising that as an open question. Should the death penalty maybe get its own subcommittee? That's something to think about during this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Joan Goddard, I believe you're next.
And then I apologize while I'm still muted. That doesn't really work. Yes, my name's Joan Goddard, and I'm in the San Jose, California branch, which is the southern San Francisco Bay Area. And glad to be here this morning. I have a long concern as far as prisons, but I have not focused on mass incarceration before, and am learning a lot from this committee and otherwise. I looked at the agenda and see that there are things to share later. So the closest involvement I have with incarceration is that my husband was a draft refuser and was in prison for 1/3 of a 5-year sentence, plus time in the St. Louis jail before he was sentenced. So thank you very much, and look forward to working with the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. We'll go with Rita Gonzalez and then Samantha Turner. So Rita, you have 2 minutes to say your branch, your role in the organization, and what expectations you have for the meeting. Rita.
Okay. Rita Gonzalez from Trinity, North Carolina, between Winston-Salem and Greensboro, right in the middle. I'm with the Triad branch, and with the organizations. You didn't ask me to state all the organizations I was with, did you? I'm sorry.
Oh, you may have time to do that. You have 2 minutes, so go right ahead.
Okay, so I'm with SARN, and of course WILF, and involved with the Black Liberation Caucus within WILF. I'm also with Compañeras Campesinas, and that is based here in the US, but there's a lot of work being done in Puerto Rico. And also involved with, I'm sorry, I've got to apologize. I'm not with it. I started taking my medication for this vertigo, and it's still not sinking in. But there's other organizations. I'm not even going to get into it now. I'm sorry, but I'm just trying to get clarity and make sure that we get focused, so that we all on the same page, and that way we can line out how we're going to address these issues individually and collectively. I hope I answered that succinctly.
Thank you, Rita. George is giving everyone a 1-minute warning after they've been talking for 1 minute, and then she will mute you at 2 minutes because George has been made the host for the meeting. She's agreed to assist me since I'm having a kind of crazy day with my local community organizing. I've asked George to assist in that way by putting up the agenda. So Samantha, I believe you're the last person of the 11 people who are in the meeting today. That's the list I have, that there are 11 people. And Samantha, if you could do your 2-minute check-in, that would be great.
Sure. Good morning. Samantha Turner in the Triad branch of the Southern USA WILP. And I'm interested in this committee because I want to do local work on police reform in the Southern US. And this has everything to do with mass incarceration, along with the refusal to treat people as human beings. But I'm also part of the WILP Immigration Committee and the Racial Justice Committees, and I'm happy to be here.
What are your expectations for the meeting today, Samantha? Do you have any?
I'm trying to learn more because I'm becoming more involved in police reform in this area. So as well as this is what I'm working at. So I want to work at it. We can work. I can help you, and you guys will help me. That is my expectations.
Well, thank you, Samantha.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is to approve the agenda as shown. What I did here in expectations for the meeting was a very definite request that our work of this mass incarceration subcommittee also include lifting up, abolishing the death penalty. So I do want to add that item as we get down to what EMI work is visible in your community or branch. I would like to add people mentioning if there's any work going on around abolishing the death penalty. So that's the only addition to the agenda that's on the screen right now. And so what we need to do is say if we approve the agenda. So are there any objections? This is the way I do consensus. Are there any objections?
Teresa D has joined us and I didn't check in.
Oh, I am so sorry. So let's make sure that we check in the other 2 of the 11 people in the meeting. So we'll start with D and then we'll do George Friday. D, you have 2 minutes to say who you are, where you live, and what your expectations are for the meeting. I know you're in a place where there's not a branch, but just say you have 2 minutes, D. I'm sorry.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. D. Murphy, live in central Minnesota. I'm a wide open book. I don't really have any expectations for this particular meeting, although overall what I'd like to see a focus on is assisting domestic abuse victims from becoming incarcerated for fighting against their attackers. That's very important to me, because I don't feel there's just representation out there in the community for not only victims of domestic abuse, but in terms of legal defense. And that's about it. Is there another question I should answer?
Oh no, that's fine, Dee. Thank you. George, you're last. And you have to keep time on yourself, George.
I will do that.
You're really got a lot to say and you're doing a lot. So go right ahead.
George Friday.
I'll just stay over then.
Dee, you need to mute yourself.
I'm muted, Dee.
Okay.
Okay. George Friday, I'm in the Triad branch in Gastonia, North Carolina. I also am convening the Racial Justice Subcommittee and active with another couple of subcommittees. I share Dorothy's concern that, to me, advancing human rights has all of these elements. And to the extent that we can combine or figure out how to work together, so that between my work that I, to pay the bills and my volunteer work, it's pushing over 70 hours a week of my time. And that's just not sustainable. So got to figure out a way to use that time better. Check.
Thank you, George. Well, I appreciate it that Dee lifted up domestic violence because quite a few women have been killed this year in Columbus, Georgia, due to domestic violence. Over the weekend, a woman who was like 8 months pregnant was killed along with her husband by her ex-husband who killed himself. So domestic violence, I think, should be added in the agenda item around what work is being done in your community or branch, along with the topic of the death penalty. So at this point, we're getting ready to approve the agenda as amended. So consensus. Are there any questions about the agenda as amended? Are there any objections to the agenda as amended? So I will not assume. So are there any blocking concerns to the agenda as amended? Well, if there are no questions, objections, or blocking concerns, I declare that we have consensus on the agenda as amended. And so we'll leave it up for a few more minutes. But we're going now to the question of what should be the name of this subcommittee. And I'm glad that George shared the information that at the anti-racism subcommittee meeting yesterday, the name was changed to the racial justice subcommittee by consensus. So instead of saying anti-racism, we all agreed in the meeting yesterday that it would be called the Racial Justice Subcommittee, Joan. So you might want to make note of that. It was a consensus and an agreement, and we're attempting to reach consensus on what to call this subcommittee now. So the proposal is to call the subcommittee End or Ending Mass Incarceration. I do know that ending is a more active word, and I would prefer that we say ending mass incarceration. So that's the proposal before us. So now we want to open it up for some discussion before we attempt to reach consensus. So we have comments from anyone who wants to be on the stack. Anyone who wants to be on the stack on the question of changing the name from just mass incarceration to ending mass incarceration. That's the proposal before us.
Do I need to raise my hand, or can I just
start talking? Just start talking.
Okay.
And then Margot is next on the stack. So you first, Rita.
Okay. I definitely agree with saying ending mass incarceration, because that's what we want. That's what we're trying to do. And it's just very clear, straight to the point, no doubt about it. I'm for it.
Thank you, Rita. And Margot, you're next on the stack. Margot, are you there? Margot, you're next on the stack.
Let's call it let's please, I just like briefly to support I just want to say briefly, I like the idea of consensus. I think it's totally right. I just want to express my active support for it. I know it's not necessarily always good consensus by implication. I want to propose maybe you could call it ending mass incarceration and the death penalty.
Well, that is a definite alternative proposal. And I have no objections to that. And so I think it's a very powerful title. I would like to ask of the acting Advancing Human Rights Chair if she could comment on Margot's proposal, which I do support. Madam Acting Advancing Human Rights Chair, I hope I'm not putting you on the spot too bad, but could you say what you think about calling our subcommittee Ending Mass Incarceration and the Death Penalty?
I think Teresa is talking about me, Joan Goddard, and Madam Teresa Elamine is talking about me. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is a very serious subject, but somehow that response came from me. Sorry. The names of the subcommittees are up to the subcommittees, as far as I know, and certainly not subject to my approval. I am, as Teresa said, acting or interim. I've been using coordinator because we got this the larger committee going again, and we and it's wonderful that there are several subcommittees, but it's great to combine where we can and not just keep adding more and more and more. As George was saying, it gets a little overwhelming. But anyway, lots of people working on lots of good things. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Joan. So the proposal has now amended to call this committee the End Mass Incarceration and the Death Penalty. And so I think the word is best changed to end instead of ending. So end mass incarceration and the death penalty. So now we're ready for consensus. And so if there are no other folks who want to speak to it, George, help me check the chat for the stack. So I see no one else on the stack. So are there any questions about the title proposed for the subcommittee, which is End Mass Incarceration? Are there any questions? Any objections? Any blocking concerns? Well, hearing none, the title of our subcommittee is now End Mass Incarceration and the Death Penalty. And you will see how important that is as we continue through the agenda, that Margot had the foresight to add the death penalty. Very important. Thank you so much for your contribution, Margot. Now we're at the agenda item of what EMI work is visible in your community or branch. And we said that people who raise issues of the death penalty and domestic violence, and any of us can say what work is being done in your community around end mass incarceration. And George, if you could take down the agenda, because we only have one other item after this before we do the next meeting. So that's great, so we can all see each other. And I have been working on my face a little bit, but I will turn on my camera because I'm getting ready for a busy day. But I will model the first 2 minutes. So George, if you could start timing me now. I am in Columbus, Georgia, which is a military town. Everyone here has a gun. I have never seen anything like it. Today, it was announced that we have the 55th murder of this year since January 6, 2021. So I called the mayor. I have the mayor's text. I have the mayor. He has 2 cell phones and I have them both. I texted him this morning after hearing the news about the 55, and he said he would call me back. And then we're in a group of like 85 people on Messenger, on Facebook. It includes lots of elected officials and others. And what I proposed is that the mayor should bring all the Black leaders together, the men to stand with him to call for a truce, because the murders are associated with gang violence, retaliation. And when the first retaliation occurred, they should have called for the truce then, but the law enforcement, the police department is headed up by somebody who is really incompetent. I've been in the city before where this kind of thing was going on. And the mayor, doing exactly what I proposed, stood before the community and said, this has to stop now. Enough is enough. We are asking you to call for a truce. And he set up a meeting in a big space where it was a beautiful buffet, and we guaranteed all the gang members safe passage in and out of the meeting. So they knew that if they came to the meeting, they would not be arrested at the meeting, and they were able to talk through the truce. It was only the first of several meetings because they weren't ready to stop killing each other at the first meeting. So that's what's going on in my community around trying to end all these young people going to prison for murdering people. Check. Now I will call on you one by one. So Wendy, do you know of anything going on in your community? Oh, can't hear you, Wendy. You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry. I was just thinking we just had a shooting this weekend into a car where an 11-year-old is dead and an infant is in the hospital, which is extraordinary for the city of Madison. We've always had relatively low numbers of murders per year. But I can't speak to what the local group is doing about it. We've certainly had a number of folks in the community bring it to the renewed attention of the mayor of Madison and other groups. But I honestly can't speak to what's going on. That is something I'm going to have to check into and get back to you. Sorry.
Next is Robin Lloyd. Oh, you have to unmute yourself, Robin. We can't hear you.
There I am. We've had some shots fired, but no murders yet. And I definitely feel compassion for you, Teresa. This is terrible to hear what's happening in your community. I'd like to respond on the domestic violence issue. Here in Burlington, Black Lives Matter has a video that is called Think Twice campaign. And this is think twice before calling the police. And a member of our Wilf branch, who is a lawyer, is troubled by that because she feels that women facing domestic violence, what can they do but call the police? And they must call the police. And so she is in disagreement with the Black Lives Matter chapter here. And I'm just wondering if others can respond to that concept of think twice before calling the police, and whether that's a good idea. And, you know, and I've said to her, listen, Black Lives Matter nationally is basically run by women. That's my impression. And I'm sure they are sensitized to this issue. but could others respond in terms of Black Lives Matter and the stand towards domestic violence?
Well, that's your 2 minutes if you're ending there. And so I'll call on people to continue their 2 minutes. And since domestic violence was raised by Dee, I'll call on Dee next.
Hi. To answer Robin's question, as a survivor and also having volunteered in a domestic abuse shelter, the protocol in Minnesota is that if you call the police to get help and you have a child under the age of 18 in a home, the police automatically send a report to Children's Services Protect CPS. CPS, well, what they do is they'll get in touch with the local domestic abuse shelter, and the people in the domestic abuse shelter are mandated reporters. So they in turn have to. And that was the reason I left after 3 months. But they have to forward your information on to CPS. And so then an investigation begins of you. You're the victim, you're calling for help, but now you're worried about keeping your children. And there are a number of cases where it's very difficult to get out of abusive situations. You can't just walk away. You know, there's a lot of things bases you have to cover before you do. There's a lot of preparation. And so if, you know, we've got CPS worker breathing down your neck telling you that you have to get out right now or else you lose your children, it just magnifies the problem like 50 times over. But oh, it looks like George is saying something.
CPS is what?
Child Protective Services.
Child Protective Services.
Okay.
George is saying you have 1 minute, Dee.
Oh, okay, thank you. So then I forget what we were going to be addressed. Oh, what are we doing in our neighborhoods or what's going on in our neighborhoods? I haven't been as active in the neighborhood as I'd like to be. I have had a couple of meetings with one of our local pastors who's been doing a lot of community. He's got a community policing agreement here in my town. And it's been very effective in keeping down the number of police incidents. It doesn't mean it will never happen, but police are pretty well trained as far as how to interact with people in different situations. We have a conservative mayor, but he's on the spot about any kind of police entanglement with the community because it's a very heavy Somali community and it can go up in flames quick. Oh, there's George. So anyway, I've been working with him recently. And thank you.
2 minutes each. So people kind of prepare to know that you have 2 minits each. We want to be fair with equal time. So please mute yourself if you're not being called on. So I'll go with George next for her 2 minutes since her hands are raised.
I raised my hand because of what Dee said, not for my 2 minutes, but I'll take it now and not have to go again. So Dee, the problem that you were describing is one that in 2004 to 2008, I worked on a federally funded project funded by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention to address just that. And we did come up with a good process called Safe Start, where we resource the neighborhoods where the highest calls came from the police, the highest concentration of people experiencing violence in Chatham County, North Carolina. And we resource neighbors, kind of like community policing, except, you know, every neighborhood has someone everyone trusts. In Columbus, it's Miss T, Mama T, or Mama Teresa. But everybody knows if something goes off, go to Miss Such's house, go down to such, everybody knows that person. So what we did was resource that person so that people didn't have to call the police except as a last resort. So we can talk about that if you want sometime. That's it.
That's fantastic. That's wonderful to hear.
Oh, well, Robin, mute yourself. We're going to have strict discipline in the meeting. So the next people on the stack are Margot, Philip, and Rita in that order. So 2 minutes for you, Margot, 2 minutes for you, Philip, and 2 minutes for you, Rita. What is going on in your community or your branch?
Yes, in my community, and I should explain just briefly that I'm basically under house arrest because I have a disability and I need a caregiver here to get me down the steps of my apartment with a walker. And so I haven't been out and about very much. And of course, given the pandemic, that probably would have a similar result, but I haven't been around as much as I would without my disability. But anyway, there have been Black Lives Matter events around the topic. There's concern about militarization of the police, because militarized police, we have someone here from Minnesota, and I remember the case of Philando Castillo, where people trained in this militarized police department, an officer trained in this killed Philando Castillo for legally carrying a concealed weapon. And that was one of the incidents. I remember the Black Lives Matter address. And there have been demonstrations here in Sacramento on March 4th of 2018. There were a group of maybe 75 or 85 people who were mass arrested for doing a Black Lives Matter demonstration around the killing of Stephen Clark, who was a young man who was shot, and the police said they claimed they thought his cell phone was a gun. And so there's been a lot of Black Lives Matter activity against the militarization of the police and around police killings. And there's I've been at some of the events. There have been marches, and there have been some events which involve civil disobedience and the blocking of roads. And I could tell you more about the March 4th, 2018 event. I regret I wasn't there because it was in my neighborhood. I didn't know about it, but they did mass arrests, and later on, the mayor apologized because there's no basis for arresting these people. They kettled them on a bridge and arrested them. And there was a Black woman there. She was a 30-year-old mother, and she was rammed by a police bicycle for no reason. It was, that bridge, I thought that bridge maybe should be renamed in her honor. But that's a quick summary.
Thank you, Margot. Philip, you're next, and then Rita. 2 minutes, Philip.
Good morning. The project that I will try to bring to the San Francisco branch basically is going to be rooted in working on voter issues and voter suppression. And the connection with mass incarceration is that the district attorney of San Francisco is being, there's a recall effort out. And, but, in order to see if we're going to work on this particular one, because it's going to be in conjunction with outside entities such as churches. So I have to see how that's going to fly with this particular district attorney, because it's really a very divisive issue with this particular district attorney, because he is born of parents who were part of the Weather Underground radical group of the 60s. And he's a very radical district attorney. But I think that his objective of no bail or no cash bail is very progressive. And he has made a very concerted effort to hold police officers accountable for their bad behavior. So we all have to fill out the branch members and see what they think about this particular issue, because he's also raised the penalty for felony charges from $700 to qualify for a felony to $900. And a lot of people are outraged by that because they think they're letting people off the hook. So it's something to be explored, and at our next meeting, I'll let you know how it's going. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. We'll go with Rita, Samantha, Diane Blay, if she's available. If not, we'll go with Joan. So Rita, Samantha, Diane, and Joan. 2 minutes each. Rita, your 2 minutes. Rita, unmute yourself, Rita.
Sorry. Okay, I'm actually still doing the research, but apparently the ACLU has an affiliate here in North Carolina that works towards abolishing the death penalty. So seeing as they get a few dollars from me every month, I figured I need to contact them and find out what specific work is being done in North Carolina and see how to connect into that. Apparently other organizations are partnering with the ACLU on that very matter. And because we are a death penalty state, they have an affiliate here. So I need to track all that down. I know the North Carolina Coalition for Alternatives to the Death Penalty is having an event coming up the 10th of this month. And it's a workshop, which is free, but if you can make a donation, they'll accept a donation. It's I guess it's a conglomerate of faith-based organizations that are working to abolish the death penalty. And so I need to connect with them, but I'm going to sign up for that workshop. Actually, I was looking for that website address so that I could send it out to everybody that wants to participate in that. So as everybody else is talking, I'll look that information up and put it in the chat. Was that sufficient?
Well, thank you, Rita. Robin, you'll have to wait. Rita, after Rita goes Samantha, then Diane, then Joan. We're doing this in order so that everybody has a chance to give their 2 minutes on what's going on in their community. So Samantha, you're next.
I'm here. As soon as you said that, Ms. Selming, I looked at, as of September 16th, Charlotte has had 68 deaths due to gun violence. A lot of that is being done by drive-by shootings and school shootings. And the latest, not the latest, but 3 weeks ago, a little boy named Isaiah Figueroa was killed sleeping in his home around midnight, 3 years old, in a drive-by shooting. 150 rounds have been recovered. It is a terrible situation here with the shootings, and the police have zero control. There are community organizations that are working in the communities to help control the violence that's going on in the schools and with the kids, and they're doing outreach programs, Action NC, and also outshoots from the ACLU, like Rita had mentioned, are doing protesting, and they're calling on the police to reform, and they're demanding that the police reform that was put into place in 2018 actually happen. It has not. They're showing up at jails, they're posting and demanding bail reform. They're protesting. There's a lot of people trying to raise awareness and change policy here in Charlotte. And I'm happy to say I am one of them.
Thank you, Samantha. Diane Blay, we know you said that you would be listening in and you may not be able to talk, but we thought we'd give you an opportunity now if you can. Thank you.
Thank you. But I think my granddaughter might be screaming any second. I'm trying to get her to bed, so I'm going to pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Well, we'll go with Joan Goddard.
Thank you. Let's see. I know there are many people in the San Jose, California area, otherwise known as Silicon Valley, working on many issues related to this. There are people in the San Jose Peace and Justice Center who work with an organization called DBUG. D as in David, E, capital B as in boy, UG, which is, and one of their major focus for DBUG is police activity and related problems. There is a local ACLU, as well as the Bay Area having, quite a few ACLU groups and so on. So I'm going to be finding out what is the current situation. I haven't seen emails recently, although I have in the past, about what's going on and so on. So I will be finding out, and sorry, I'm not prepared at this point to report, except that I know that people have been over the years and currently are. And also I know that there were arrests at the during the Black Lives Matter related demonstrations here, including one bizarre arrest of a peace center leader.
Joan was past her 2 minutes, so I muted Joan.
Oh, I don't think she was. But let Joan, because I had Joan at 1:33 when I started my clock. So Joan, you have about 30 seconds. So if you could finish, that would be great. Unmute yourself, Joan. We can't hear you. Joan, we can't hear you.
Okay, I got
it. You have 30 seconds, Joan.
George muted me too because of the time, yeah. Anyway, that 2 minutes is really short, isn't it? Anyway, I was just saying that I will be finding out, and that this strange arrest happened where a leader of the peace movement was arrested because the police objected to his using a laser or whatever light system that is to do something on the wall. Anyway, thank you.
Well, thank you, Joan. Well, we just had my friend and comrade, Walisha Wilson of Atlanta to join. And I believe she's a member of the Metro Atlanta branch, and hopefully she's paid her dues since she agreed to do that. Well, Sister Walisha, we were asking everyone to say what's going on in their community. And so since you just joined, if you could take a minute to kind of introduce yourself and then just say what you're working on in the Atlanta community. And I'm going to be mentioning you later when it comes to the conference. But if you could take the time to introduce yourself and what's going on in the Atlanta area, and say the organization that you work for. You have 3 minutes since you're introducing yourself, in addition to telling what's going on in the community. So George, I'm her and still give her the 1 minute warning. Thank you.
Okay, I won't be on that long. I apologize for my tardiness. I was actually in a meeting with the prosecutor, and the former prosecutor. I had a call with him as well. So I work for the Southern Center for Human Rights, but outside of that, I run a nonprofit that I work with individuals with criminal records, where we help them find employment and connect them with other resources. But I also recently started last month the Georgia chapter of All of Us or None. And it started here in Atlanta, but it's for anybody that's throughout Georgia. And right now we're just meeting virtually. 2 of the campaigns that we are supporting is accountability in Georgia prisons, improving the prison conditions and holding them accountable, supporting Representative Kim Schofield on that effort. Last month, her and several city councilors and other representatives made a drop-in visit at a prison, and the warden and everybody declined to let them in. And of course, because they didn't have the house in order and they didn't want them to see what really was going on. So she is working on a new law that will say that representatives and people who are trying to do oversight and accountability should be able to drop in at any point in time. So we're supporting her on that campaign, but we're also on our own major campaign is working to abolish slavery in Georgia by demanding that Georgia amend its state constitution. Currently, the state constitution's law says slavery is illegal unless for the exception of being used for the punishment of a crime. And that is what we're demanding, that Georgia change that language to say that slavery nor involuntary servitude will be legal in the state of Georgia. Because state of Georgia is still dependent so much upon a lot of the white supremacy and the days of slavery, they use that exception to get free labor out of people who are in jail and in prison. So that is why we want them to amend the state constitution, as well as we're supporting Representative Nakima Williams, as well as another senator who has requested that it be put into a federal, that they do it federally. I see you, George. So that is what we're working on. I'll be sure to drop the link in the chat. All the meetings going forward now are for people who are members. Membership is free. And I'll just drop the email in the chat for you to be able to communicate if you want to be added to our listings of the things that we're doing. And no, I have not. I did get the link about the membership and I hadn't got to it. I actually went on and looked, and it is on my to-do list tomorrow to get it done, because I don't want to take on more than I can, because I want to be able to make sure I'm contributing my whole self. But I am planning on joining, and I do plan on actually looking in there and getting my dues paid by Friday when I get paid.
Thank you, ma'am. We're counting on you. Well, we have about 7 minutes before the hour. So I would suggest that at our next meeting, since we've gotten this report and it's recorded, we can go a little bit more in depth and we can answer other questions. But I urge people to use the chat. Unfortunately, Robin, Philip couldn't answer your question by using the chats because he's on his phone. So next time, if Philip will be on his computer, he can answer questions in the chat because George is the host for this meeting. So she's going to be saving the recording, and the recording will be posted to the branches list, as was the anti-racism recording posted, and George will take care of that. The last item on the agenda is an update on the Fannie Lou Hamer Human Rights Conference, which is taking place on December the 11th via Zoom. The conference is sponsored as the first annual Fannie Lou Hamer Human Rights Conference. And the conference is going to be opening panel. And the beautiful news is that on the opening panel, we have the executive pastor of the Ebenezer Baptist Church based in Atlanta, which is also Walisha Wilson's church. She was very instrumental in securing Pastor John Vaughn, because he does the administrative work at the church, but he's going to tell us about the EMI work that the church started 2 years ago. And the other person who is confirmed on the panel is Asadeh Shashahani, who is a legal and advocacy director at Project South. And she'll be presenting on immigration justice. We also need a speaker, Robin, on the TPNW, because the 4 panelists will cover the death penalty, immigration justice, in mass incarceration, the TPNW. Those will be the 4 speakers. And we'll have breakouts on all those topics, in addition to the UN Decade for people of African descent. And so Walisha Wilson and John Prince are going to do the breakout sessions on end mass incarceration. We'll have a different person for the death penalty breakout. We'll have different persons for the immigration justice breakout. And it's our hope that the Disarm End Wars Committee will handle the breakouts on the TPNW. And I had proposed that Cheryl Spencer, since I've heard her speak well on this topic, that she might be considered as a speaker on the opening panel, which would be 10 minutes she would have. And then we would break out into 2 40-minute sessions. So there'll be lots of time to talk about what we're going to do, because this conference is a conference intended to talk about what we're going to do. So that was just an information point. And based on our imposed time limits, we don't have time for any real discussion. So if we do want people to hang for a minute after we decide on when our next meeting date and time is, there was some complaint about starting at noon. And I think a suggestion was made that we start at 1 p.m. instead, so that people on the West Coast won't be getting on the phone on the Zoom so early. So if there are no objections to starting at 1 p.m., I am proposing that we pick a date after October 15th, because on October 15th, we should have heard back from our mini grant application, which is for $1,500 to fund the conference in December. And they're working on giving us an answer. So I would suggest that we meet on Monday, the 18th of October at 1 p.m. Could everyone check their calendars to see if they're available on Monday, October 18th at 1 p.m. 1 p.m. East Coast time, which would be 10 a.m. West Coast time. We need to reach a consensus and agreement. So if everybody can raise their hands if they're okay with that date. Okay, I see Wendy, I see Margot, I see me.
Will it just be 1 hour?
Yes, all the meetings will be 1 hour.
Okay.
Are you okay with that, Samantha? Joan and Dee are okay.
Yeah.
Diane is okay. Wendy said she was okay. Are you okay? Okay, George, are you okay?
I need to find out what time the Poor People's Campaign press conference is that day. And I don't know that, but otherwise, yes.
Okay, Rita, are you okay, Rita?
The date is fine. You said what time exactly? I'm sorry, I missed that part.
1 p.m. our time, Rita.
That'll work.
Okay, Walisha, can you do 1 p.m. on October 18th?
Okay, let me look at my calendar. October 18th. Hold on a minute.
It's a Monday, a week from, 2 weeks from today.
October 18th at 1 p.m. I'll be in a mayor's commentary on reentry call, but I mean, I can have to have both of them up at the same time. Normally, I just kind of sit there to advise, but I will be in a Zoom meeting. But yeah, I mean, I can participate in both of them.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, please show it recorded that we will be meeting again on October 18th at 1 p.m. And I do believe it's 1 p.m. now, 1:01. So if there are no burning questions or issues, we do like to keep our word. And I will end the meeting now. And George Friday, I'll give people a moment to save the chat. So George Friday, would you also save the chat for this meeting in addition to doing the recording?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. So everybody else save the chat because I'm getting ready to leave the meeting and end the meeting for everyone. Thank you so much for being here. See you on the 18th, if not sooner, in some other subcommittee meeting. Have a nice afternoon.